This podcast is for informational and discussion purposes only and reflects personal experiences and opinions. It is not legal, medical, or mental health advice and does not create any professional relationship between you and I. Family court outcomes vary, and listeners should seek qualified professionals for guidance specific to their situation. This podcast may discuss sensitive topics, including emotional distress and suicide. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is struggling, please seek immediate professional help by going to your nearest hospital or calling 911. Hey, dads, moms, supporters, family, and friends. It's Rachel K., host of Deadbeat Dad by Design, and this is episode 8. As always, if you are a mom who's going through similar situations, I see you, I hear you, I love you, and I support you, and I do want to hear from you. This podcast is where we expose what really happens when a loving, involved father stops being seen as a parent and starts being treated like a threat. And that's sometimes where the control begins. Today's episode, when co-parenting becomes control. Because what the court likes to call co-parenting is not always cooperation. Sometimes it's surveillance. Sometimes it's manipulation. And sometimes it's control disguised as concern. And for many fathers, it becomes a slow, calculated process of being reduced from equal parent to supervised visitor in their own children's lives. Let's start with what co-parenting is supposed to look like. 2 adults, both parents, both equal importance, both responsible, both respected, working independently while supporting the child's relationship with the other parent. Not interfering, not undermining, not controlling, just parenting separately but equally. That's what it's supposed to be. But that's not what always it becomes. Sometimes one parent doesn't want a co-parent. They want control. They want authority. They want dominance. They want final say. And not because it benefits the child in any way, but because it benefits their position, their narrative, their power. And the moment control becomes the goal, co-parenting dies. Control doesn't always show up loud. Sometimes it's quiet, subtle, strategic. It shows up in small decisions that slowly erase the other parent's authority. Scheduling things intentionally during the other parent's time, making decisions without informing them, withholding information, doctor's appointments, school events, sports, activities, milestones, things like getting a driver's license. Not because it was forgotten, because it was intentional. Because information is power. And when you control the information, you control the other parent. And it goes deeper than that. Control shows up in constant monitoring, questioning everything, interrogating the child when they come back from the other parent's house. What did you do over there? Who was over there? What did he say? How long were you gone? Not out of curiosity, out of surveillance. Because when control is the goal, privacy becomes a threat. Control shows up in undermining authority. When the child comes home all excited from the other parent's house, that parent minimizes it. They dismiss it. They correct it and they rewrite it. Oh, that's not how that actually happened. Oh, that's not true. Oh, he shouldn't have done it that way. Slowly teaching the child that one parent's authority is conditional and it's temporary and it's less valid. And children feel that. They absorb it, they internalize it, because children are wired to seek emotional safety. And when one parent creates pressure, the child adapts. Not because they want to reject the other parent, but because they want peace. Because children survive by aligning with stability, even if that stability comes at the cost of the truth. And over time, this creates something incredibly dangerous: conditional parenting, where one parent is seen as permanent and the other parent is seen as optional. replaceable, temporary, not equal. And once that perception forms, the damage, it accelerates, and it accelerates quickly, because now the father isn't just parenting his child, he's parenting under scrutiny. Every decision is judged. Every mistake is magnified. Every imperfection is documented, and not for growth, but for ammunition. Because when control is the objective, mistakes become weapons. And here's the psychological reality most people don't understand. You cannot co-parent with someone who sees you as an inferior. You cannot co-parent with someone who needs to win at all cost. And you cannot co-parent with someone who benefits or celebrates your failure. Because co-parenting requires equality. Control requires hierarchy. And hierarchy requires someone to be beneath. And too often, that person becomes the father. Not because he's less capable, not because he's less loving, not because he's less stable, but because the system allows the perception to take hold. Once the one parent is labeled the primary, the other becomes secondary, supplemental, supporting cast in their own child's life. And the father feels it in every interaction, every exchange, every decision he's excluded from, every moment he has to ask permission instead of just exercising authority. Because control turns parenting into compliance. Compliance slowly erodes identity, and here's where the emotional damage compounds. Because the fathers start second guessing themselves, not because they don't know how to parent anymore, but because they've been conditioned to feel like they're a guest, they're a visitor, an outsider, in a life that they helped to create. They start asking permission for things like they never had to ask for permission before. They start avoiding conflict to preserve access. They start shrinking themselves to avoid losing their child entirely. And that's not co-parenting. That is survival. And children see that too. They see who holds the power. They see who makes the decisions. They see who gets deferred to. And children naturally gravitate towards perceived authority, not out of disloyalty, out of psychological adaptation, because authority feels permanent and permanence feels safe. And over time, control replaces connection, not loudly, quietly, gradually, until the father realizes he's no longer parenting freely. He's parenting under terms, under condition, under supervision that he never agreed to. One of the most dangerous parts of it all, control can be disguised as protection. I'm just looking out for my child. I'm just being the cautious one. I'm just doing what's best for them. But what's best for the child? It's not eliminating a loving parent's authority. What's best for the child is balance, security, freedom to love both parents without pressure, without influence, and without control. Because when control replaces co-parenting, children don't just lose balance, they lose half of their identity. Because a child's identity is built from both parents, not just one. And when one parent is diminished, part of the child is diminished too. Long-term consequences are real. Children grow up confused, conflicted, emotionally divided, not always understanding why, just feeling an absence, feeling an imbalance, feeling the tension they were never meant to carry. And fathers, they carry the weight of being slowly erased, not all at once, but piece by piece, decision by decision, moment by moment, until one day They realize they're no longer being treated like an equal parent. They're being treated like a tolerated presence. But here's the truth. Control only works when silence protects it. Control only survives when fathers stop pushing back, when they accept the narrative, when they accept the role they were never meant to have. But fathers are not secondary. They are not optional. They are not replaceable. They are not foundational. And no amount of control can erase that truth forever. Because eventually, like I've said, children grow up. They see clearly. They recognize imbalance. They question narratives. They connect the dots. And the truth resurfaces. It always does. So if you're a father experiencing this right now, understand something. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You are not imagining it. Control feels real because it is real. But your role as a father, it is stronger than anyone's attempt to diminish it. Stay present. Stay consistent. Stay grounded. Because control thrives on emotional reactions, but it loses power against quiet, consistent truth. You were never meant to be controlled. You were meant to be a father. Hey, so that was a fun little intro that we did there. And I'm so excited to have my co-host back again this week, Kara. And we have a wonderful, wonderful guest on today. Her name is Kylie, and she is a bonus mom. And I'm so excited for her to be here and get to share her story, but also get to be a part of this episode. And kind of give some insight to what other bonus moms are having to witness and support their husbands through. So, Kylie, I'm going to let you take the stage and just kind of briefly tell us your situation. Why you were willing to come on and be a part of this, and you can talk about your relationship with your bonus kids before and after the switch.
Okay, yeah. So I'm Kylie. I run For the Sake of Children on Facebook. It's a page I created to hopefully avert any disagreements in the high conflict situation I have going on. I was posting on a public page that was my personal page, and I kind of wanted to separate my personal life and the high conflict aspect of this in order to not involve all of my friends and family in what's going on, because it gets messy. It
Yeah.
gets kind of messy, I'm sure, as you guys know. Who I am, I entered this situation 6 years ago, so it's been a good long time. I've been involved for the majority of her life, more than half of it. She'll be 10 this year. Um, our bond is really good. It was really good. Over time, there's been things that have been said about me, about my son, about my significant other that have slowly seeped in to her mind in order to change her perception of who we are as people.
Yeah.
We're no longer caregivers, we're no longer parents, we're no longer siblings. We are the other, we are the outsider, we aren't important anymore. And I'm starting to see it in my stepdaughter in the ways that she interacts with us. It was in the ways that she interacts with my parents, who used to be grandma name and Papa name. Now it's just name. Not that that matters. Whatever they're comfortable with, I'm comfortable with and okay with. It's just the difference. It's a change in what I witnessed before and now after. And that tells me that there's something going on, whether it's in the other house or in a relationship that she has in her life. Something's going on to degrade her relationship in this home.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm here and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Well, I'm so thankful, and I apologize. I forgot to mention the For the Sake of the Children
That's okay.
Facebook page, which is incredible. It was one that I started following early on when I first got into this father's rights movement, and I see that you're growing, and that's so exciting. And I'm glad that you were willing to come on and talk. One of the things that stuck out to me that you were just talking about, I posted a video I think yesterday about this actually, which is funny, about how start paying attention to when the narrative changes all of a sudden. So like you said, they used to be grandma, I'm just going to throw a random name, used to be grandma Sally, and now it's just Sally. And kids don't do that on their own, right? They just don't, especially a 10-year-old. They're learning that from someone, whether it's mom or another sibling or a step parent or a teacher, or somebody is saying, that's not really your grandma. That's just Sally.
Hmm.
That's not childlike behavior. That's adult learned behavior. And the language starts to change with these kiddos. They start saying things that kids don't say. So it came from another adult. Who that adult is, we don't know because we weren't there, but it came from another adult. I Was there like a specific moment that you remember where you felt your role shift from an equal parenting partner to something else or something less?
Honestly, the day I walked in, I was something less. I was the other. The day I stepped into the role, I was that pregnant, explicit word, insert there. Um, I was just the other from the start. I entered into a high conflict situation from the gate. They had gone through court prior to me being in the situation. She had withheld the child from him in forced court. So I entered into a situation that I still don't know the full spectrum of what happened before me, because unless you live it, you don't know the full spectrum. But what I do know is that what I entered into and what I've witnessed until now is nothing but child abuse.
Mm.
It's a slow child abuse, and it's an unobvious child abuse. It's not something you can point at and say, hey, they're neglecting them. Hey, they're hitting them. Hey, they're emotionally doing this, because it's so hard to pinpoint,
Yeah.
because it's seeds planted over time. And over time, that child, it takes root in their brain. And once it
Right.
takes root, it starts to flourish into this plant. And once this plant has grown, which the plant is the negative thoughts about the other home, it's set in stone and it's hard to dig up, because once those roots are formed, those roots are deep.
Yeah.
Right. You kind of answered my question. I was going to ask you, um, what are some of those subtle signs that of control that people like us on the outside would never notice? I think you answered that. It's not going to be obvious signs, but it's going to be daily, just little daily routines that you've noticed that there's control on another side. Would you
And
agree?
I would agree, yes, it can be subtle for sure, just like I described, but there can also be instances where it's obvious. Things like pulling her out of school because the other parents, the stepmom and dad got involved in schooling. They started showing up to events, showing up to PTO meetings, doing what they're allowed to do as parents. And because of that, now all of a sudden we have this desire to homeschool, and now she's falling behind in math, and now she's falling behind in social skills. Her reading and writing is, I could go on and on about that. So there's things that are obvious, like pulling out of standard school when parents are getting
Right.
involved. And there's things that are obvious, like lying about events, lying about going on vacation in order to deter the child from going for holidays to the other house. So there's obvious and there's not so obvious.
Yeah, I think that that's another big hitter that we've seen and we've talked about is making the other house less desirable, and
Mm,
and not coming out straight up and saying like dad's house is unsafe, dad's house is bad. There are parents that do that, and that's straight A,
mhm.
right? There are parents that do that. But there's also parents that will say it in sly ways, like, we're having this really big party this weekend. I'm sorry that it's your dad's weekend. I guess you're going to have to miss it. It really sucks for you. But next time we have another one, and it makes the kid go, well, I don't want to go to dad's if y'all are all going to have fun without me. And it's sly movements, it's sly ways to make the other house not seem like the safe house, or not seem like the fun one, or the desirable one. And it's not it. And and in some instances, I've seen and heard stories where they will say, like, dad's house isn't safe to the one child that they're trying to manipulate and trying to alienate, which is funny because you won't let that one go, but you'll let the other ones go. You'll let the other kiddos go to dad's house. So is there abuse going on, or is there not abuse going on? Is it safe or is it not safe? Because you're allowing some of your kids to go, but you're not allowing the other ones to go. And it's because they're controlling the one kid first. And that's a pattern we've seen a lot in these groups, especially like the Papa group. They've talked about that, how it's easier for the alienating parent to work on one kid at a time. Especially if you have 2 or 3 or 4 kids, it's really hard to convince all of them. So let's start with one, and then hopefully the other kids are going to start to fall in place. And then that child, the older child, actually becomes the alienator and helps alienate the children away from dad. And it's not their fault. People want to blame kids. They want to say, well, they know better. Well, no, they don't. They've been conditioned. And it's not their fault. And the reality, and the really sad reality, is when they become adults, they're going to realize what they've done, and they're going to hurt so bad for what they did to their parent. And that's a whole nother trauma that they're going to have to deal with later in life.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we've done this a couple times now where we're like, man, we could go down a whole rabbit trail and get completely off. So let me ask you this. Going through the situations that you've gone through, how does this affect your confidence as a bonus mom?
Honestly, I've always confronted injustice head on. So my confidence hasn't really been degraded at all.
Good.
If anything, it's made me more confident in who I am, because I know that what I'm doing is right. I have confidence that I'm not doing anything wrong. I know I'm not doing anything wrong. Everything that I speak about is for the sake of children. That's why my page is called For the Sake of Children, because at the root of everything that I talk about, it's for the child that's stuck in the center of it.
Yeah.
So my confidence hasn't been diminished. It's just been even more.
Good. That's good. It takes a strong woman, because a lot of them break.
Yeah, it's hard.
I know someone just like that, which is great. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go to your husband for a second. Do you see him start second guessing himself as a father?
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
feel like having to walk on eggshells now anytime the kids are around, because anything that is said or done, even good, could be used against him?
Absolutely. And that narrative had been there in place prior to me even being involved, because she had done this beat down on him, not physical beat down, but this beat down in terms of emotional beat down on him for years. Even in the relationship, it was unhealthy. It was an unhealthy dynamic. So once the kid was involved, that just added fuel to the fire. But within him, he doesn't like to be confrontational, because anything that he says can be used against him. Where I'm the one, I'll speak up because I'm just an other. The courts won't look at me and say that, because I'm nothing. So if I'm nothing, then my voice means nothing as well. So what I'm saying truly means nothing in the eyes of the law.
Right.
So that's why I'm comfortable speaking up, where he's not comfortable speaking up. And I can't fault him for that, nor would I, because he loves his kid. He loves all of his kids. But this one kid is being kept from him in a legal way, where it's every other weekend. But in an emotional way, she's being told that dad's not good enough. Dad doesn't do this. Dad's always on his phone. Meanwhile, dad's busting his bottom at work all the time. And the little time he gets is that little time. So when he's on his phone, it looks like the whole time, but it's not. And so she switches it. She forms it like Play-Doh into her own narrative, and she feeds that to the kid, and that's what's spit out. And so he really doesn't feel comfortable speaking up for himself. And that's been sad to see because men should feel comfortable speaking up. As a man, that's what you're called to do. And you're called to lead the family, not take a back seat in the family. All I do is pray. That I give it up to God, and that's where I'm at.
That's what we have to do. I wanted to, and it's been on my mind since you said it, and it's because we're on a public forum, and because people are going to come on and they're going to want to judge and they're going to want to give their opinion. So I do want to say this really quickly. I want to go back to the story you were saying about how the kids were in public school, and then all of a sudden the other side jumped in and said, no, we want to pull them out and homeschool, and now they're falling behind. You've got one mom here that is a public school mom, and then you have one mom here that's a homeschool mom. And so we support both situations.
Yeah, I advocate for whatever is best for your child and whatever is best for your family. It doesn't offend me one way or the other if someone doesn't want their child homeschooled. That's not the right situation.
So
That
my fear is that someone might be like, why is she fighting to keep them in public school? Homeschool's better.
That's
Why is
not
she
the
fighting?
story.
I
And
hear
that's
that.
the story. The child, it sounds like, is doing worse in homeschool. And so I just wanted to, public people out there in the world, I want to clear the space.
I
No,
hear
No.
that.
okay.
Thank you for clearing that up. I am actually a homeschool mom as well. I preschool homeschool. I
Yeah.
just didn't have enough confidence in myself to be able to do outside of that. If I had confidence in myself to be able to do outside of that, I totally would. I'm all for homeschooling in the right ways. It's
Right.
when it's used in a negative way and used in a means to control the co-parent that I have a problem with it.
There you go.
And when the child is not benefiting from it.
There you go.
Right.
That's when I have an issue with it. And I love homeschooling. I love it as a whole. I think it's a great concept. And like I said, I homeschool preschool. I preschool homeschool my own kids.
Well, and it does go both ways because in one of the groups we're in, I just sent this information to Rachel. I just saw this where a parent is doing the opposite and using trying to take the child out of homeschool and put them in public school to control the other parent. So, I mean, it goes both ways. It's just at the bottom line, it's just how we can have a little bit more control.
Yep.
And we're using the children as a pawn, and now we're bringing in the education system to help us with it.
To help do it. Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. I think when the courts have gotten involved, have you seen the system reinforce the imbalance and the chaos? Or do you feel like you've seen them actually try and help restore equality in the parenting?
When I entered, it was post-court. So I haven't experienced anything. I have experienced the court with my biological son and his dad, and that was a whole different ball game. But we won't go into that. So I've experienced court in some capacity. What I will say is that the courts never work in the favor of the parent who is the most caring and the most safe. The courts always seem to work in the favor of the parent who is most negative and the parent who is most gatekeeping or the gatekeeper because of the fact that they're going to pull the most money out of that situation. If you give the kid to the parent who is negative, the positive parent is going to want to fight and keep fighting. So more money pulling. I find the court to be more of a money scheme than anything, like a money pulling scheme. I don't find them to be helpful. I think that there's situations where they can be helpful, but in most circumstances, especially high conflict circumstances, I find them to be more of a, what's the word? Help me out here.
I find it to, I feel like what I've seen and heard and stories that have been told to me over and over, I see them rewarding the imbalance. I see them
Yes.
rewarding the conflict and rewarding the litigation abuse versus actually trying to resolve and give equality where equality is due. Um,
Right.
Yes.
and we've said before that, you know, I didn't start this movement to support the fathers who are, you know, actively shooting up heroin in their living room in front of their kids. I'm not naive, right? I'm not supporting the fathers who are essaying their children actively. That's not who I'm supporting. I'm supporting the fathers who are doing their best, who are loving, who are giving everything they can. They may not remember every single birthday date. They may not remember every single friend. They may not remember every instrument played or every sport played or every single teacher that the kid has. They may not know those things. But dang it, they are there when they can be there. They love them. They pray over them. They teach them. They're taking them out and showing them responsibilities. They're doing everything they physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually are capable of doing. And these are the fathers that are being torn down and saying, you're going to be an every other weekend warrior. That's what you get. That's all you get.
Mhm.
And it's control. It is control, control, control. It is, how can I control the narrative? Well, if they're with their dad 50-50, then I don't have control over them. So I'm going to keep
Mhm.
fighting and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I have them the majority of the time. So I can make all the school decisions. I can make the medical decisions. I can make the spiritual decisions and the psychological decisions. And dad just gets to be the place that they get to go to every other weekend.
Hmm.
And then sometimes that's not even good enough.
Hmm.
And it's, that's why this one's all about control. Do you think that the kids eventually grow up and realize the truth when they get older?
I think they do. I can speak from experience because my father was kidnapped as a child by his biological father. He was taken all the way to California for a year, and for reference, he's from Ohio. So Ohio to California, that's a long distance. So I have experience in that, and I have seen him wake up to the realization that his dad is a bad guy and his mom is a good person. He was told his mom was dead and that she wasn't coming back. And he was locked in a closet by his dad. So there's trauma to unpack there. But I've seen him overcome that and be the best father he can be for us, for me and my sister. And so I've seen that. And then on the other hand, I was abandoned by my biological father. And I had a phone call with him. And I realized in that moment when he told me basically at the end, have a great life, that, okay, this closes that book. I've realized that this is not a good person. So I think kids, actually, I know kids wake up because I've experienced it myself. I've experienced it on one hand with my dad, I've experienced it personally myself, and I am now experiencing it with my stepdaughter, who I see small, small hints of her waking up. Like, I think my mom lied here, but it's small because the manipulation still runs deep.
Yeah.
But I have hope with my own experience in knowing that kids do wake up. Kids do see the reality.
Yeah. There's a girl that has a really big movement out right now. I'm hoping that she's going to come on the podcast sometime if I can convince her to. But she was alienated away from her father her whole life. And she believed everything her mom said, everything, and became an adult and learned the truth. And she's
Hmm.
fighting a battle of forgiving herself for not, for believing in her mother, for not listening to her dad and listening to the truth. And then there was another story that Kara told on one of our episodes about a friend of hers that he was alienated away from his dad, and his dad kind of just gave up and left. And his whole life he was told, your dad abandoned you. Your dad was a deadbeat. Your dad just didn't want you. And come to find out in his 30s, he found out dad didn't abandon them. He was pushed out by the system. He was beat out by the mom, and he was lied about all these years to the point where fighting to survive wasn't, like, that was all he had. And so they've built this beautiful relationship now in his 30s, and he has this great relationship with his dad, and he's learned the truth, and he's been able to forgive his mom.
His mom. Right. He has a great relationship with his mom and dad.
Yeah.
This is a story of like hope, and things have been reconciled all the way around. So, but yeah, his mom admitted to him finally one day, your dad wasn't the one that left. I was the one that left him. And I brought you with me. I don't know. That's the story we all hope for one day and pray for.
Yeah, that's the prayer, is that these kids that are being gate kept, these kids that are being controlled by the other parent or conditioned by the other parent to not want to be with their father, not want to be with their mother, whoever it is, that one day they grow up and they see the truth, and they get to experience that reconciliation and that forgiveness. And it's not going to happen for everybody, which is really, really sad, but that is the hope,
I believe with the help of steady adults, stable adults like myself, I believe that with that help, with that light, children will follow that light. And hopefully, no matter how long that takes, whether it's at the age of 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, the child will wake up and see the reality for what it is eventually.
Yeah. If you could speak to your husband or speak to other fathers out there watching what your husband's going through and what he's been through, and having your page for the sake of the children and hearing stories, I'm sure you've heard a lot of stories like I have. I have people reaching out to me left and right, like, oh my gosh, I need to tell you my story. If you could say something to these fathers to encourage them being in a controlled situation, what would you say?
Would say children wake up, children see the reality. And if children don't, God does.
Mm-hmm.
At the root of it all, God sees everything.
Mm-hmm.
And justice will be served in the end.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Kara, were you going to say something?
No, I said that's 100% correct.
Yeah. I asked this to the last two people that we interviewed. If you could speak to your adult children, so not who they are now, but later down the road when the dust has settled, when things are done and they're adults, they're in their 20s and 30s. If you could speak to them, what would you want them to understand most about the situation that you guys were going through?
That I had no control. That I did everything I could with what I had, but I had no control.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do anything legally, and in terms of parenting, I had no say. I'm sorry, and I wish I could go back and change it, but in reality, there's nothing that could be done to change it because of the way the laws are set up. And I'm sorry, and I was there for you every step of the way, and I'll be there with you, even in this chapter of your life, and going forward into the next chapters. I'm sorry. That's all I could say.
Yeah. Well, I think it's enough. I think it's enough. I think being a bonus mom is hard. It's hard. And you do feel voiceless and you feel like there's times where you want to scream and there's times where you want to embrace and you can't. And yeah, I wish that's one of the things that I wish could change is I wish that the bonus parents that are living that life could be used in the system in some way to bring some light. But so far that change has not come. So not so long. Kara, do you have any last closing questions or statements?
Well, I really admire both of you. Kylie, I love your story. I admire you, and I really appreciate what you're doing because you do have a voice and you're using it really well, and you're advocating for children, which at the end of the day, that's all that matters. That's all that matters. I wish both sides of the story could both parents could just realize that what's best for the children is what needs to happen. And unfortunately, we're all human, and we have all of our own little insecurities that we're trying to play out with our children. And it's shameful and it's hurtful and it's sad, but the voice that you have right now is so important for you to keep doing what you're doing because you are making a difference. And the same with you, Rachel. Y'all are both incredible, strong, amazing bonus moms, and you are making an impact, whether you see it right now. You are making an impact in those children's lives, and the truth will come out, justice will come out. And like you said, at the end of the day, God knows. He knows. That's the one that matters. He knows what's happening. He knows what you're going through. He knows your heart. Despite what people say, he knows your heart. He knows your intentions. That's what matters in the end. And you just pray for your relationship with your spouse now, and you pray for your children. And that's really all we can do right now. But I love that y'all are putting your voices out there. Your stories need to be told. Other people need help. And that's what y'all are doing. You're not staying quiet. So
thank you, Kara.
I'm glad I get to be a part of it.
Thank you, Kara. You're the best. She's the best sister. That's why I wanted her.
Yeah.
She
is the best.
Yes. Well, Kylie, I'm going to piggyback on her. Thank you for creating the For the Sake of the Children Facebook page. Guys, if y'all aren't following her, please make sure you go on and find her page and give her a follow and give her a shout out. She's very brave for getting out here and speaking and jumping in on this father's rights movement and trying to help change the narrative for so many dads and so many kids and so many other bonus moms that feel silenced and feel pushed out by the system and are being controlled in very unfair ways. And so I thank you for that, Kylie. Thank you both for being on. Super excited for what's to come. Let me pull up my notes here real quick because I want to make sure that I don't misspeak. But we have Monday dropping. Hold on, where'd it go? I know what it's about, but I like to say the title. Hold on. Okay, here we go. So Monday at 6 p.m., episode 9. I can't believe we're already on episode 9. Episode 9 is going to be dropping, and it is called How the Children Learn Who to Blame. And so that is a good one. I have a really, really good guest on for next week for episode 9. I'm excited. It's all about basically when the parents separate and there's this quick battle, usually by the mom, to make sure she's the winning parent. And it's how the kids are kind of coerced into choosing one or the other and how they choose who to blame. And so it's going to be another really good episode. I'm super excited. Girls, thank you guys so much for being on. Thank you for the listeners. Thank you for everyone who has subscribed so far and all the followers. It's been incredible. Don't forget to go and follow my Deadbeat Dad by Design Facebook page. And then I have my Father's Advocate Mom TikTok and Instagram. And if you get on there, I've been doing some funny videos. I'm a little proud of myself for those. I'm gonna laugh.
They were funny. I laughed. They were funny.
I did the Robin Hood one with my horses. I'm silly. I do like mom jokes. I like to laugh at myself. Anyways, I was proud of that one. But yeah, make sure you guys go on and follow those pages too. But we'll keep updating everybody with information on the fathers' rights movements. There's some really big things coming up in Washington, D.C. that I'm excited to be a part of. I might actually go over the summer. That's going to be really cool. So I'll make sure I'm sharing that on my page as well. But all right. That's
Bye,
it.
guys.
I love you guys. Thanks for being here. And
Thank you for having me.
yeah, I'm going to stop the recording.